if they don't crash. He's the one tearing the driveline apart and checking all that and just checking all the components on the car, while the crew chiefs, maybe going over paying the bills or looking at setups and just recording, or maybe in the trailer on the shock dyno running shocks, that kind of thing. So it's kind of become more specialized. But I still feel and have always felt that the best sprint car drivers are the ones that do know the mechanics of the car, or they can build a race car themselves, or can put the torsion bars in it and do the chassis adjustments, or figure out what shocks they want to run. I think it's better for them in the long run. I tell a lot of young drivers that today. There were a lot of good sprint car drivers throughout history that if they didn't have a good mechanic or crew chief, they struggled. And to get that feel, or to find what the car needed. So Doug Wolfgang comes to mind. Sammy Swindell was probably the best mechanic / driver there was. Wolfgang was really smart, chassis setup and that kind of thing. But then you got Steve Kinzer, who couldn't at one time. I think later on, especially when he owned his own team and stuff, he became more aware of things. But when he was probably at his peak with Carl Kinzer, he couldn't tell you, one torsion bar from another, or he just got in it and drove it, And in one sense, I envied that, especially in those days, because there were times that I had to work on the car. Now I had a crew chief, even or a mechanic back then, but it's usually just the mechanic and myself. And so we'd work on the hot black asphalt all day long, sometimes, in Texas or wherever it might be, and just wear you out. Just if you just stood there all day, you'd be worn out, not mention working on the race car. And then by the time it came race time, I was half worn out, just wanted to take a nap. So I think it hurt in a way. And I still think today it hurts that the driver has to be there all day long working on the race car. I think they should know what's going on, be a part of the team, ask a lot of questions and that kind of thing. But to be out there working with the crew, or working on that race car, I think it does hurt them as a driver when it comes to being sharp and ready to race.
Teams often show up at another team's shop, they make plans so that they can work on the car when they're out of town. And we talked to Tim Schaefer and Donnie Schatz, and they both said that they frequent Jack Hodenshield's shop. So how often do you make it over to Jack's shop nowadays?
Well, believe it or not as often as I should, I guess. I did stop in one day when Cody Jacobs was there working on Schaefer's car, and Jack was there, and Zach Ames, his new crew chief, and Danny Moomal, the driver who runs Wayne County, he was there, and they were actually had borrowed some scales from a late model guy, and we're scaling cars and comparing different cars and working on some things, trying to figure some stuff out. And they were sharing, they had two different types of chassis between Tim's car and what Jack runs. And they were, kind of comparing, what this car has versus that car, and why this makes a difference and why that makes a difference. And of course, nobody's going to, if they got what they feel as an advantage, they're not going to share that, So I don't care who they are, but it is nice when you're on the road to have a nice shop to go to and work out of, and not be out in the hot sun in a motel parking lot.
Seen some pictures and of cookouts that were going on over there at the Hodgson shop, and heard some stories about a little gathering after Sprint Car World Championship last year. I was joking earlier that that'd be the perfect place for us to try to catch an episode of this podcast after.
No, I probably wouldn't. There could be a lot of Yeah.
Everybody would get real quiet, probably.
Yeah. Dave, after Wayne County, Jack's Place has been known to have some wild get-togethers, put it that way, So some fun times.
Well, if Jack or any of you guys are listening, we're not going to show up. I promise. It's not gonna...
Yeah. Especially in the days before everybody had a camera, So
speaking of that, we talked with Greg Wilson a little bit earlier this year about how Twitter has been the go-to social media platform for the sprint car community, it seems.
Yep.
And you are a very active Twitter user. So what do you think is the overall effect that it's had on the activity over the last, I'd say, 8 to 10 years?
I think it's been good. I mean, obviously there's always bad to go along with any good, and social media can be very, very bad. It can be ugly at times, and you just have to kind of weed through some of that stuff. But for me personally, it's been good. It's been great to help promote the Ohio Logistics Brad Doty Classic, presented by Racing Optics every year, and leading up to the event. So it's been very good there. I've learned a lot from following people and just keeping up with what the teams are doing, what the drivers are doing. I feel like I've gotten to know people on Twitter that I wouldn't otherwise have known. I drivers from out of state or different part of the country, we might have conversations on Twitter, and a good example is, Brian Clausen. Obviously I knew who Brian Clausen was, and I was pretty sure he knew who I was, but so we kind of went back and forth on Twitter, this was a few years ago, but had never really met to talk much. So just went back and forth on Twitter, and then we were at the PRI show, and he was in one of the booths, and I was wheeling by, and we just kind of locked eyes, and I stopped, spun around, and we, talking, hey, how you doing? What's up? And we felt like we knew each other just from Twitter, where if it wouldn't have been for Twitter, obviously I didn't know, I knew his racing stuff and what he did and all that and who he was, but I wouldn't have been as comfortable to sit and have a conversation because I wouldn't have known so much about him, and just personal things that he would share on Twitter or whatever it might be. And so that part of it's been great as far as I'm concerned.
Clint and I, we've been to a lot of races between Florida, Ohio, Michigan, Indiana, Pennsylvania. And we believe that it's pretty hard to compete with the Brad Doty Classic. You get your teams from all over the country. You get Ohio's best teams. You get the World of Outlaws. You get some Pennsylvania guys. And then you, Brad, are, you're a regular at Knoxville, Kings Royal, and like all the other big events. So what makes your event at Attica special for you?
Well, for me, it's just, it's a whole lot of work, way more work than people realize, and pretty darn stressful. So when it's over, I'll admit it's a huge relief. But what makes it really special for me is, number one, seeing the amount of drivers. We set a record the last 2 years in a row for the largest World of Outlaws single day car count anywhere in the country. So I'm really proud of that the drivers, want to support it. And then to see the, people in the stands and the fans, it makes it all worthwhile, all the work and effort. And just, I mentioned I was in Pennsylvania over the weekend, and I was doing autograph sessions at Williams Grove and Lincoln. And I know, well, especially when the race was at Lima, when it was a lot closer to Eldora, we got a lot of central Pennsylvania fans would come in Wednesday for our race and then go down maybe on Thursday and set up their camper. And it was an open day, and they party. He was at a band down there and get ready for the Kings Royal. Well, then when Eldora went to a 3-night format, we backed our race up to Tuesday to have a Wednesday rain date. Well, we lost some of the travelers because they couldn't take that extra day off work. And it did hurt us a little bit. But I talked to a retired gentleman at Lincoln, and this really surprised me because I knew a lot of our fans were have always come in for the week, for our race. Some would go over and go to the USAC Speed Week, the races maybe on Thursday and even maybe on Friday, and then just go to the King's Royal on Saturday kind of thing. But I actually met a retired guy who said he was bringing his motorhome and was driving over, it's a good 5.5 hours to Attica for my race. And I said, oh, then you're going down to Eldora. He said, no, I'll camp at Attica Wednesday night and then drive home, or Tuesday night rather, and then drive home on Wednesday. And I was shocked by that. He said, I started coming a couple of years ago, and he said, it's a race I hope I never miss again. He said, it's just the atmosphere was great. The racing was great. And he just loved the racetrack. And so I was really shocked that he would drive that far for just our event. So that makes me feel good. It makes me feel like the event has gotten to the point where, a lot of people support it, but the emotion that some of the drivers have shown over the years who have won it has surprised me. Even Donnie Schatz, seems like he genuinely puts the race up there, as one that he really wants to win, and all the things that he's done. Obviously the Knoxville Nationals, his record there, and World of Outlaws championships, and he genuinely seems like this is an important race for him to want to win.
Yeah, Donnie he mentioned that last week, and he's a 4-time winner of the Brad Doty Classic, I believe.
Yeah.
And last year was definitely an exciting race. I think we had 5 leaders with Donnie in and up winning that race at the end. This will be the 31st Brad Doty Classic. Is there a year that stands out in your mind for excitement reasons, for stress level reasons, is there any one year that really stands out in your mind across those 30 that we've had already?
Well, yeah, probably at when the race was down at Lima, we had Steve Kinzer and Jason Myers, heck of a battle, and Kinzer got by on the the years of all, or the winners of all blended together, but it was the last lap pass in 3 and 4, and I mean, the crowd went nuts, and we've just had some, last year, with Kyle Larson being there and being close at Attica. The year, you guys may be too young for this, but Alvin Rebke won it one year, and he got out in his signature. His quote was, "Holy moly, I won the Doty," and a lot of people use that for years. And I guess there's been a lot of special moments, a lot of good racing, and we've had some threat of rain the last 3 years that I'd like to have one year where it's going to be a beautiful 75 or 80 degree day and low humidity, and not worry about pop-up storms or anything like that, especially now that we lost our rain date. It's important that I want people to know that we've had historically the Wednesday for a rain date, so I want fans to know that we're going to do everything we can Tuesday to get it in. There's no curfew. We'll run all night if we have to, and as I said in my Sprint Car and Midget column, we'll keep the beer stand stocked full of beer and make a party out of it if we have to run all night, But we have to get it in Tuesday, and that's our goal.